My mother-in-law, without consulting me, abruptly terminated the lease agreement for my apartment. Being married into her family, I naively expected that my husband, son, and I would have our own space. However, she firmly believed it was my duty as her daughter-in-law to care for her as well. This situation left me feeling dizzy and overwhelmed, as her words pierced through me, insinuating that I lacked proper upbringing. To add to the turmoil, a group of movers, whom I hadn't hired, invaded my home and began dismantling my furniture. My mother-in-law, wearing a triumphant expression, declared that from now on, I would be living with them. It was clear that she exercised control over my father-in-law, manipulating the situation to suit her own desires. I found solace in the fact that my father-in-law was a kind-hearted person, but this intrusion felt like an insurmountable intrusion. Unable to contain my emotions any longer, I reached my breaking point. No, I had surpassed my limit long ago, which is why I had come prepared for this confrontation. Interrupting my mother-in-law's words, I decisively pulled out the item I had prepared. Just as she had unilaterally terminated my home contract, I severed my marriage with her son without informing her. At the moment, she understood everything. And her face went pale. It's been 3 years since I married to my husband Escher. Escher and I are currently living together in a studio apartment. My parents bought me. My parents manage your company and are very well off, though I've turned down their financial help since I started working and living on my own. This house was a wedding gift. So I had no choice but to accept this as to celebrate your wedding, so at least let us do this much. When my dad said that I couldn't refuse, Escher was happy that we could live together comfortably, and seeing him like that made me happy as well. Our married life went well and we ended up having a child relatively quickly. Marriage, pregnancy, and the birth of her son, Gabriel. It was the happiest and the busiest time of my life. He passed by in like a whirlwind after meeting my in-laws before the wedding. I rarely saw them. Escher's parents' home was far away. And it was a hassle for his parents to come visit us. My father-in-law was an executive in his company, so he couldn't take long vacations. So generally, we would share updates about our son over the phone. Even though we can see you over video calls, it's lonely not having you visit in person. My mother-in-law said that every time we spoke over video call, I wanted to visit them occasionally, but I had so much to do, and since Rosa was so young, I was worried about traveling a long distance with him. I also still wasn't fully recuperated from giving birth. All I could do was let out a dry laugh and apologize. Days and mouth passed and Rayon turned 3 years old. I still can't keep my eyes off him. But he's grown up to be a very good boy, and he even helps me out sometimes. Around that time, my mother-in-law began visiting us more often until now. She had said she couldn't visit because my father-in-law couldn't take vacations. So I wondered how and why she started visiting more often now. At first, she would only come once every few months. But she started visiting us more and more to the point she was at our home every week. I've met a new friend recently, they drive me to here. My mother-in-law said, handing a new toy to Gabriel. Escher's father isn't with you. He's really busy. Even today. He's working. My mother-in-law didn't seem to care much as she answered, since Gabriel has gotten bigger, why don't you come over to our house as a wife? It's your job to visit us. My mother-in-law spoke to me spitefully as she hugged Gabriel, but even if he's gotten bigger, he's still only 3 years old. He hasn't had much experience traveling long distances, and I'm still teaching him manners and how to act outside or house. Escher is also busy with work and it's hard fitting a trip into his schedule. I am sure Escher had spoken to his mother about this, but she just wanted to be mean to me. Even when Gabriel was a baby, you would just let us see him over video calls. It was so sad. My neighbors are all looking forward to meeting my mother-in-law. Looked across the room. And let out. I wonder if living in this fancy house is what makes you feel like you are so important. I would never know how to react when she said this. Gabriel has also said he doesn't like his grandma much. I'm sure he could feel that his grandma was mean to me even if he couldn't understand what she was saying. She started visiting us so often that it felt like a problem. I asked Asher to talk to her about it. Suddenly, shortly after we got a call that Asher's father had collapsed, Asher quickly took time off and we headed to his parents' house together. Your dad suddenly collapsed while he was working. We went to the hospital and took some tests and it seems it is nothing life-threatening. But his arms and legs are still a bit numb, so he needs to be taken care of. He's put us aside his work for now, and he is reading in his bedroom since the first time I met my father-in-law. He's always been a quiet person. He didn't say much, but he was always interested to hear about Gabriel. He would send us money and gifts full Gabriel. And in general, always treated as well. Though my mother-in-law seemed very worried. He was calm. I can't work like I did before, but I've saved enough money that we don't have to worry. It's not like I can't work at all anyway. It's not that serious, so we don't have to worry too much. His hands were a bit shaky as he closed the book he was reading. My mother-in-law ignored that. Enter into me since he's like this. Why don't you move in with us to help take care of him? I don't know what I'll do on my own. And since you were our daughter-in-law, you should at least do this much. Oh, but we have our apartment. I was worried about my father-in-law. But I wouldn't accept this that easy. We already signed Gabriel's up for preschool in our area, and considering my mother-in-law's personality, she'll bother me every day. I turned to Asher, hoping he would be on my side, but he was nodding alone with what his mother said. Won't you be quiet? I'm telling you that's not necessary. So, Isla and an Asher don't need to move in. Don't force them into it. My father-in-law's words hang in the air. The situation was settled that day. We were able to return home without a problem, but my mother-in-law began to harass me more. Isla, I want you to help me get here. Quickly, she would have called me to say that at least once a week. At first, I believed her and I would rush over, but each time it was for something unimportant. There is a bug in the kitchen. Catch it for me. I need to pull the weeds from the garden. Help me. You got here too late. I've already resolved my problem. Every time it'll be something like that. But I knew if I ignored her, it would become a huge drama. So I had no choice but to go. Every time the we'll live far away. So come in here. Isn't that easy? Right? Please don't call me over if it's not actually urgent. If you lived here, you wouldn't have to do this. You are a living leisure. Trying to forget that my husband and I exist. That's why I am making you travel this distance. It's your fault, not mine. My mother-in-law always acted like she was the victim. I'm sure your husband isn't unhappy with him. He's only concerned with himself. And I won't listen to a man who can't work anymore. Whatever he says, I don't care. But she was saying this, my mother-in-law's friend called her on the phone. I'm going to meet my friend now, so you can go home. If I have any more problems, I will call you. Mentally exhausted, I set out on a long journey back home. I've spoken to Asher about this countless times, but he just says the same thing as his mother. I can't move because of my work here, but you are not working. So what's wrong with you moving in with them? I can take care of Gabriel. I can't leave Gabriel to be taken care of by Asher. Little by little I became more upset with Asher and his mother. Thinking about Gabriel, I was worried about him. Growing up in this sort of environment, I secretly decided to take things into my own hands. One day I went with Gabriel to the neighborhood grocery store. And when we got home, I saw movers walking around in front of my apartment building. I wondered who in our building could be moving. But as I got closer to my door, I saw that the movers were coming in and out of my apartment. Surprised. I asked the movers what was going on and they said they were hired to come. When I entered the apartment, I saw Asher and his mother ordering the movers around. Oh, Allah, you are late. What's happening? You keep turning down, moving in with us. So I came here to get you. I was full of anger, but my mother-in-law looked at me with a smile. It's your fault not listening to what I say. But don't worry, I won't blame you. You'll be taking care of us from now on, so I will make sure we get along. I decided talking would get me nowhere with my mother-in-law. So I glare at Asher. You are making a scary face. We received this apartment as a present, so we are free to sell it or leave it as we please, right? I am also worried about my parents. Since you have free time, you can move in with them. We'll all be happy. Won't that be great? Haven't you thought about how Gabrielle and I feel? Gabrielle will make new friends and you can find a part-time job out there if we are worried about money. We can ask my parents for help, and if we sell this apartment, we'll have enough money for a while. If anything, you are at fault since you abandoned your obligations to us. If you understand, get ready to leave. Seeing how they spoke and nodded to each other without considering my feelings, I couldn't take it anymore. Fine. Yeah, I got it. I hugged Gabrielle tightly and gave the biggest smile I couldn't master. In that case, I'm breaking up with Asher. Asher was at a loss for words. Huh? Hyla. What do you mean? As I said, I'm ready to get divorced, so I leave the rest of you. If you have any complaints, speak to my lawyer. I've recorded our conversation where you talk about how you will force me to move in with your parents. I also have recordings and text message histories showing how your mother treated me. It's better for you to not overthink this and just divorce me. I went into our bedroom and brought out the divorce papers I had prepared. Oh wait. Do you think we'll let you get away with this? Don't you pity Gabrielle? Gabrielle was surprised by his grandma's sudden yelling and he began to cry. Grammar. It's scary. I don't like Grandma surprised to hear your Gabrielle's cries. The movers all peeked in to see what was happening. I'm sure they could tell who was the bad person here. Listen to what Gabrielle is saying. It seems he won't mind. I'll move in with my parents for a bit, so I'm not worried. My mother-in-law felt too embarrassed to continue screaming in front of the movers, so she went quiet. Having gotten back at her, I felt relieved. Asher, things will probably get tough on you from now, but I hope you and your mom get along. She just thinks about herself, so be careful. You and I will be divorced, so she has nothing to do with me anymore. I packed a few things and I got ready to leave. Anything else I need, I will buy once I get to my parents' house. Before I left our apartment, I went up to Asher. Thanks for everything. Here is my last present to you to celebrate the Andover marriage life. As Asher stood there stunned, and with our divorce papers in hand, I handed him a few photos. The photos showed Asher's mother holding hands and walking happily with the men. We didn't know. She lied that she had made a new friend. She was actually having an affair. When she would come over to visit us, he would drop her off with a kiss. I saw them kissing on her apartment building security camera, and hired a private investigator to confirm everything. She probably planned to forcing me to do everything when I moved in with her so that she could have more time for her affair. Singing the photo, Asher's face went bright red and he began to scream at his mom, "What is this? Didn't you say you were taken care of? Dad, you are wrong. That's not me." Of my mother-in-law's voice was shaky and I wondered what would happen from now, but I don't have anything to do with them anymore. So I can't just stand around and watch them forever. I stepped out of the apartment after speaking to the movers. I met a phone call. How are you feeling? Yeah, everything is over on the other side of the phone. My father-in-law replied in a quiet voice. You went through a lot. Sorry about that. Thanks to you, I found out about my wife's affair. You really helped me out. I will handle the rest. I'm praying for you and Gabrielle's happiness." I thanked him and hang up the phone. I'm glad I told him everything afterwards. My ex-father-in-law divorced his wife. She had been using my father-in-law's retirement money however she wanted. So now that she had to pay all back, she was in trouble. I've heard she's living in a super rundown apartment now, even though she is old and her body is weak. She found herself burdened with multiple part-time jobs as she struggled to repay her debts. The demands of her financial situation left her with scarce time and limited resources. To compound her hardships, her lover had abandoned her, leaving her to lead a lonely existence. These details were revealed to me by Asher, who now regretted always siding with his mother. He reached out to me, begging for a reconciliation. Asher shared that he was also exasperated by his mother's constant complaints and requests for money. While I sympathized with his situation, I couldn't forget that during my own difficult times, when I sought solace in his companionship, he had been absent. With those memories still fresh, I made the decision to cut ties with him completely. I ended the call abruptly, not allowing Asher to finish his plea. I blocked his number and severed all connections, as I had moved back in with my parents and finally found a sense of peace. In due course, I enrolled Gabrielle in a new preschool and embarked on a search for a new job. With my mother-in-law no longer a presence in my life, I was determined to work diligently for the betterment of my son. I would put forth my utmost efforts to provide him with a secure future and embrace the responsibilities that lay before me.